At 7:40 in the morning, someone was pounding on my door like the house was on fire. He was panicked, late for work, trapped in his own driveway. And the reason? My truck was parked behind his car. And his car couldn't go anywhere. I'm currently working in the town I grew up in, a place I left years ago and never looked back. It's hundreds of miles away from my real home, and staying here longer than expected has been draining. Some towns don't change. They just wait. I'm staying in a house next to someone I knew growing up. I'll call her J1. She lives there with her spouse, J2. That detail matters, because familiarity is often how people excuse disrespect. My truck is my livelihood. I work out of a heavy-duty utility truck. It's large, loud, and impossible to miss. It doesn't fit in the garage, so it stays in the driveway, inches from the shared property line. Inside that truck is everything I need to do my job. I'm very particular about my tools. Not because I'm controlling, but because tools are how I pay my bills. One case in particular matters more than the rest. I built it myself during trade school. Custom aluminum shell, handmade hinges, a molded interior designed exactly for each tool. It wasn't just equipment. It was effort, skill, pride. I don't loan tools lightly. The favor I agreed to. A few nights earlier, J1 sent me a message. Hey, could J2 borrow your cordless drill for a bit? I hesitated. Then I agreed, with clear conditions. Put everything back. Lock it up when you're done. She knew where the key was. That trust would turn out to be misplaced. The moment I knew something was wrong. 2 nights later, I stepped outside to grab something from the truck. Immediately, something felt off. Snow, inside the truck bed. When I brushed it aside, my stomach dropped. My custom tool case was sitting there, wide open. Metal tools exposed to freezing snow. I just stood there for a moment. Not angry yet. Just stunned. I would never treat my own tools like that. And I would never treat someone else's tools that way either. Damage control. I brought everything inside, cleaned and oiled each piece, and tried to calm myself. Most of the damage was superficial. That was a relief. But the next day, I did what I always do. I ran inventory. Driver missing. 2 batteries gone. A pry bar. A 4-foot level. That's when I went next door. The conversation that changed everything. J2 answered the door. He was clearly intoxicated, middle of the day. I told him calmly that I needed my tools back. He brushed it off. I'll look for them tomorrow. Tomorrow wasn't acceptable. I asked directly, but evenly. Are you refusing to return my tools? He laughed. You're making a big deal out of nothing. Then he closed the door in my face. That was the moment. Not rage. Not shouting. Just a very clear decision. Creating a record. I didn't want this to spiral. I also didn't want it ignored. So I called the non-emergency line. Not because I expected a miracle, but because documentation matters. The officer was polite and professional. He explained what I already knew. This was largely a civil issue. Still, he tried to help. When he spoke to J2, the attitude changed instantly. But J1 became defensive. Tools were tossed onto the deck. And then she admitted something important. My dad has the rest. So the tools weren't even there. The officer left. I went inside. And I thought, the plan. I didn't want to escalate. But I also wasn't willing to let it go. Respect works both ways. That night, I barely slept. By morning, I knew exactly what I was going to do. Not to damage anything. Not to threaten anyone. Just to force a conversation that couldn't be ignored. Early morning. At 5 a.m., I plugged in the truck heater. At 6:30, I started the engine and let it warm up. At 6:45, I carefully repositioned the truck into their driveway. Everything I did was deliberate. Controlled. Temporary. Then I went inside. And waited. 7:40 a.m. The pounding was intense. J2 stood there, furious and panicked. What is your truck doing in my driveway? I stayed calm. I told him I was performing maintenance and that conditions had delayed completion. He shouted about work. About money. I looked at him and said quietly, "My tools are how I make a living too." Then I closed the door. The return of the officer. Not long after, the same officer arrived again. He looked exhausted. He looked at the truck, then at me. "What's going on?" I explained. J1 shouted from inside her house about laws she didn't quite understand. The officer clarified something important. No notice was required for exterior access. Then he asked me a simple question. "Where are the tools you need to finish?" I answered honestly. "Her father's house." The officer turned to J2. "If you want to leave today, you should probably go get them." Resolution. 15 minutes later, my tools were returned. Every piece. I finished what I needed to do, put everything away, and moved my truck back where it belonged. No damage. No yelling. No confrontation. Later, I received messages demanding compensation for lost time. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't threaten anyone. I simply stopped absorbing disrespect. And that quiet satisfaction? It stayed with me. Revenge doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it's just boundaries being enforced. If someone treats your livelihood like it doesn't matter, don't be surprised when consequences arrive calmly, early, and right on time. If this story resonated with you, hit like. If you enjoy thoughtful, consequence-driven stories, subscribe. And tell me in the comments. Backhand index pointing right, what's the calmest form of justice you've ever seen? More stories like this are coming. And they're worth the wait.